Hi, I'm Gail Sokol, and on today's show, we're going to be upgrading your brownies.
Welcome to Baking Radio. Learn the art and science of baking with author, educator, and award-winning chef, Gail Sokol. Whether you've been baking your whole life or you're brand new to the world of baking and you're looking to build your confidence and learn new skills in the kitchen, you're in the right place. This is Baking Radio.
So everyone loves brownies, but on today's show, I thought it might be cool to upgrade them a little bit and do some different things with them. Maybe some of these things you've thought of and maybe you haven't, but they're very easy to do. So how to get variety out of one recipe. That's really the basics of this show. I am a diehard brownie fan. I have to admit it. It's a compulsion. I collect brownie recipes. And almost every brownie recipe I encounter, I am an addict of brownies. If I see one on a cooking show or online, I have to write it down. I have to try it like soon, like within 48 hours, because I am looking to encounter brownie nirvana. I can't help it. That perfect brownie recipe that is like no other. I am always in search of it. And I have some really good brownie recipes. I have some great ones in both my cookbooks, but I love them so much. I don't think my quest will ever end until they take that fudgy brownie square and try to pry it out of my cold, dead hand. I am really that in love with brownies. So let's face it, there's a lot of fantastic brownie recipes out there. And when I see a brownie recipe on a menu, or brownie, not a recipe, but an offering on a dessert menu at a restaurant, it will trump any dessert that there is. It doesn't matter. I will order the brownie. If it says the word brownie, I got to have it. Brownie fudge sundae, warm brownie cake. I've got to have it. So I will gear my dinner accordingly so I can have that dessert, and I will order it. And then I ask the proverbial question. Was this the best brownie ever made? Was this the best brownie I have ever had? And then the quest goes on. May be good, may not be great, may be great, but not the greatest. So I'm always searching. You know how it is. So on today's show, I thought it might be fun to give you a pretty yummy fudge brownie recipe that is approved by me, and then talk about how to shake it up a bit. And it usually makes about 9 brownies, depending on how you cut them. First thing you want to do is preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. And then you want to take an 8-inch square baking pan, and you want to grease it first with nonstick cooking spray, or maybe a little butter or oil, and then line it with aluminum foil so that the foil comes up the sides. And then you're going to grease it again and then put it aside. And there's a method to my madness, because it makes, after you chill the brownies, it makes cutting a lot easier if you have the foil in there. This brownie recipe makes 9 good-sized brownies if you cut them that way. If you cut them a little smaller, they'll make more. And the first thing you want to do is, after you preheat your oven, you want to place 2 types of chocolate, half a cup of bittersweet chocolate, coarsely chopped, and 1.5 ounces of unsweetened chocolate, chopped, into a heat-proof, medium-sized bowl that you've placed over a pot of simmering water. So you're making really a hot water bath or a bain-marie. And you're going to melt both the bittersweet and unsweetened chocolates until they've melted. And then you're going to also add 6 tablespoons of unsalted butter. Add that right in with both chocolates so that it all melts together. And allow the mixture to cool for about 10 minutes. You can remove it from the bottom pot so that the pot of simmering water has gone away. And then I usually dry the bottom of the bowl where the chocolate is so that no water leaks into the batter when I pour it into the pan. And then you're going to whisk in 3/4 of a cup of granulated sugar right into the chocolate and butter mixture, and 2 large eggs, whisk it right in, and 1 teaspoon of pure vanilla extract. Whisk that all together in that bowl. So it's basically a 1-bowl recipe. And then you're going to combine half a cup of all-purpose flour and half a teaspoon of salt, and you're going to put that into the chocolate mixture. And then I like to add half a cup of chopped semi-sweet chocolate. They can be in the form of chips if you want, or just take a nice big bar of dark chocolate. Make sure it's semi-sweet or bittersweet, and coarsely chop it and just fold it in, and it's absolutely delicious. And then pour your batter into that pre-greased pan that we did before and bake it for 25 to 28 minutes at 350 degrees Fahrenheit until a small knife inserted into the center. It better not come out clean because that means you've overbaked it. It should come out with a few crumbs of deliciousness attached to it. And do not overbake. So 25 to 28, there's like a 3-minute window there. And then take them out and cool them. And don't be tempted to do anything with them. Just cool them. And then you'll chill the pan of brownies in the refrigerator after they get cool for a few hours. And then you can lift the foil out of the pan, peel the foil off, and cut your brownies into squares. So that's your fabulous fudge brownie recipe. That is the foundation of today's show. And now we're going to make variations on the same theme. So my first variation, I like to take small spoonfuls of peanut butter, almond butter, tahini would work, or any nut butter you want. And I pour the brownie batter before it's baked into this 8-inch square pan. And then I take about a 1/4 cup of any of those nut butters that I've mentioned, almond butter, cashew butter, peanut butter. Make it the smooth variety of peanut butter if you're going to use it. I pop it into the microwave, the butter, the peanut butter or the almond butter or the tahini. Put it into the microwave till it gets a little thinner. Tahini you may not have to because that's already thinned out. But peanut butter, just so it's sort of pourable. And then I take little spoonfuls and I randomly dollop little spoonfuls all over my uncooked batter on my 8-inch baking pan. And then with a butter knife, I just make a little swirl through each dollop. That's it. Don't try to swirl it or marbleize it too much. Just a little swirl through each one. Don't overdo it, but it will look so amazing after you bake it. Then you bake it, and when it comes out, you have peanut butter brownies, or you have tahini chocolate brownies, or almond butter brownies, whatever you want. Now, jams and preserves work well. I have a fabulous recipe in Baking with Success, my newest book, with raspberries. I use raspberry preserves, and I use the seeded variety of raspberry preserves because the seeds actually add something to it. And I'm not a seedy person, but it really tastes good. Now, jams or preserves of any type would work. You could use apricot, you could use cherry. Just don't use anything like jellies, like a grape jelly or a strawberry jelly or a currant jelly. Those are going to melt down and be too watery, and they'll ooze out of your brownie, and we don't want that. Even a store-bought caramel sauce would work, right? That would be amazing. So little dollops of caramel sauce, that would work nicely. So you've just sort of modified that fudge brownie recipe that I gave you. All right, next variation, the Mexican brownie. So this variation, I like to add about a teaspoon of ground cinnamon right to my batter before I put it in the pan. So as I'm mixing it, and at any point you can add it in. You can add it in with your flour and salt, and a tiny amount, maybe a 1/4 teaspoon of chili powder. You heard me, chili powder. It really just adds just a little warmth of spice to that, and it actually makes it taste a little like there's a little something extra in there, a little heat, a little caliente, as they say, and it really adds a little something extra. Then I pour the batter into the pan, and you will have delicious Mexican brownies that will have that lovely warm cinnamon and spicy flavor. This would be amazing with a scoop of cinnamon ice cream or dulce de leche ice cream. Fabulous. All right, next variation. It's a little bit richer. I blend in about a teaspoon of instant espresso powder. And if you don't have instant espresso powder, yes, you can use just instant coffee. Into the melted chocolate and butter if you want, just to have it melt down a little. And then I pour the batter into the brownie pan. I let them cool completely in the pan. And then I make some ganache. I take a cup of heavy cream, bring it to a boil in a heavy based saucepan. And then I take it off the heat and add 2 cups of chopped or chocolate chips if you want to, semi-sweet or bittersweet chocolate. And sometimes I add 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter in with the heavy cream, depending on how rich I want it. Sometimes I just leave the butter out. And then I add 1 teaspoon of instant espresso powder again into the ganache. So now I have this beautiful coffee flavored or espresso flavored brownie. And then I'm going to do it again in the ganache topping. And then after the brownies have chilled, so I bake them off, I chill them for several hours, and then I leave them in the pan, and I pour this beautiful ganache. So once the heavy cream comes to a simmer, you take it off the heat, you add your chocolate, and you add your instant espresso powder, and you whisk it until it's all beautiful and melted. And then you pour it. You can pour it warm right over your baked brownies, and then you're going to refrigerate it for several hours. This must get firm. You want the ganache to be firm. So I would do this for several hours, even overnight. Try to keep your hands off of it. Don't tell anybody that you've baked brownies because they may not be there when you get back to check. I'd like to remove the brownies from the pan the next day. So without touching the ganache, I peel off the foil, put it on a cutting board, and cut them into tiny squares using a small knife that I like to dip into hot water in between each cut. This will keep the ganache nice and sharp looking. It won't look like it's, melted or messy. Sometimes the ganache can get messy looking if it pulls through the brownie. And then my piece de resistance, I take a little chocolate covered coffee bean or even a regular coffee bean if you really like coffee, and you place it on the top of each brownie. Push it into the ganache in the center of each of your squares, and you have a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful coffee brownie or an espresso brownie. That's spectacular, and it really elevates that brownie to a new level. So my last variation is to pour half the batter into the pan before it's baked, obviously. Spread it as evenly as possible. Remember, half of that batter in an 8-inch pan is not a lot of batter. So you're going to need maybe an offset spatula to sort of smooth it out. And it will be thin. Don't worry. You just want to make sure you spread it out as much as you can on that aluminum foil because remember, you've placed aluminum foil on the inside of your 8-inch pan. Then I like to take, get this, peeled, you take the paper off of the peanut butter cups. You can either take small miniature peanut butter cups or chocolate covered mince. And take all the paper off of them. You're just going to have to, that's the worst part of it, is taking the paper off of each one or the foil off of each one, and lay them side by side in rows all over the batter. Then pour the remaining batter very carefully on top so you don't mess with the goodies in the middle, and just spread it very evenly. And it may barely cover your peanut butter cups and your mint, your chocolate covered mince. But don't worry about it. It'll be fine. And then bake it. And then make sure it's really ice cold. You have to chill it before you cut them. And you will see this beautiful chocolate, peanut butter chocolate layering, or the chocolate mint and chocolate layering. It will be just delicious. And this really, it really does beef up the typical fudge brownie recipe. It really, really does, if there is a way to do that. But these are 4 of my favorite things to do. So there you have 4 variations of a brownie, and we have really upgraded our brownie. We really, really have. So try these. So if you've enjoyed the episode today, hit the subscribe button. And if you'd like to leave a review, I would greatly appreciate it. If you haven't yet picked up a copy of my most recent book, Baking with Success, it's available on Amazon and in bookshops worldwide. If you have any questions, head on over to bakingradio.com and leave me a message. I would love to answer some of your questions on air. And on the next show, we are going to be discussing the magnificent mango.